Don't slouch. Get those shoulders back. Stand up straight. How many of you just leapt to attention the way I used to when my mother would tell me that? Like a good girl, I tried to do what she said, but honestly, the first time that I understood what posture meant was when my grandmother warned me that if I stayed slouched over or pigeon-toed, which for some reason I thought was kind of cool at one point, that I would get stuck that way forever and have to live like that for the rest of my life. That was enough to scare me straight. And it is really when I began to understand that posture was something that was significant. But what is posture? Technically speaking, it's simply the way that our skeleton handles the force of gravity. I like to think of it as a Lego block tower. Now, when we were young, we used to build these great towers out of blocks, and we would be very careful to make sure that that foundation was very square and very straight. Because we knew if we built a foundation that was square and straight, we could build this great, big, tall, sturdy tower. We also understood that if even one of those blocks on the bottom was crooked, that somewhere up that chain, another block was going to have to be crooked to compensate. And if we didn't get it quite right, that tower would start to lean and eventually topple over. Now, I hope that none of us here are going to be toppling over tonight, but I'm going to guess that some of us are leaning. And the truth is, any kind of compensation that makes you lean over time will eventually lead to pain. Some of you may know this. Some of you may experience this and recognize some of these symptoms. Headaches, sinus headaches and sinus problems, backaches, neck aches, and a host of other ailments can actually be linked back to poor posture. So what does our poor posture look like? Pretty much what we see every day. People leaning, hands in their pockets, slumped forward. And as poor as our standing posture is, our seated posture isn't much better. We spend a lot of time sitting, and it tends to look like this. Look familiar? Just remember that that type of posture over time can lead to pain. So what does good posture look like? Well, if we all had a perfect grid behind us all the time, it would look like a straight line and nice 90-degree angles. Most of us don't have a grid behind us all the time, so it really looks like this. What I want you to notice is that this woman's ear, her shoulder, her hip, her knee, and her ankle are all in a straight line. It's like a column in a building. When you have a nice straight column, each piece of that column can take a little bit of the weight and bear the load of the building. It's the same thing with us. If we're straight, each part of our skeleton can take a little bit of our weight and the load of gravity. So good posture can lead to less pain. But there's another component to posture that I actually think is very fascinating. The fact is that when we stand up straight, it affects the way we think and what we feel. The reverse is true as well. What our mind thinks, our body follows. Let me give you an example. When things aren't going so well, when we're not feeling very good about ourselves, when we don't think we're good enough, what happens? We immediately begin to cave inward, and our skeleton actually gets smaller. But the opposite is true as well. When we're feeling pretty good about how we're doing, when we like what's happening, when we're feeling confident, we immediately stand up straight. When is the last time that something really exciting happened to you? When something exciting happens to us, we immediately reach upward. We stand up straight, and in fact, we make our skeleton even bigger by expanding ourselves. Whether you've just crossed a finish line, or you've completed a project, or you've achieved a goal, or you just feel like a superhero someday, you immediately stand up straight. And honestly, I think that's the piece that our mothers intuitively understood. They knew that it looked better when we stood up straight. But they also understood in a way that only mothers seem to know that if we stood up straight, we would act with more confidence. We would be more self-assured. And isn't that what every mother wants? So I thought I would give you an opportunity to experience that tonight. I'm going to walk you through what it feels like to stand up straight. And I'm going to ask all of you here in this audience to stand up out of your chairs. And if you're watching at home, I invite you to join us as well. Feels good to stand up. The first thing I'd like you to do is turn to your neighbor and say hello, and notice their posture. And then what I'd like you to do, stay facing that person, because I want you to see the transformation. Follow along as I give you the cues. The first thing I'd like you to do is start with your foundation. Let's look down at your feet. I'd like you to put your feet parallel to each other. That means parallel from heel to toe, not duck foot and not pigeon toe. When they're parallel, they should be about fist width apart, which will ensure that your legs are dropping down right out of your hip socket and keeping you nice and solid. The second thing I'd like you to do is soften your knees. Get rid of some of that tension that we hold in our knees. It's not a squat, it's just a little loosening. That helps you absorb some of that pressure that gravity is putting on you. Now follow me on this one. I want you to roll your shoulders up to your ears, around to the back, here's military posture, and then lower them gently into their place. You'll know you're there when you look at your hands. Your hands should be right here at your sides, palms facing your sides, thumbs facing forward, not here facing each other. And the last piece, the head. This big 8 to 10 pound ball at the top of our tower needs to go back over the tower. So take your finger here at your chin and just make sure it's back. This is not a double chin, and it's not looking up. It's simply keeping your chin parallel, but getting your head into the column. Now, notice what changed in your partner. Do they look a bit different? If you really want to see the change, now go back to your normal posture. And notice what happens. Thank you very much. Go ahead and have a seat. Now, for some of you, that wasn't too hard. Some of you have good posture, you practice this, you know this, and standing up straight comes pretty naturally for you. Others, that might have felt a little uncomfortable. You might have been using some muscles that haven't been used for a while. And the first question I often get is, how in the heck am I ever going to be able to stand up like that? It doesn't feel normal. Well, the answer comes from your mother. Because practice makes perfect. Keep practicing, and you'll find that you can stand up straight. When you stand up straight, not only will you look better, but you're also going to feel better. Thank you.